Salvē, Mika, and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at John chapter 4. I almost said John chapter 53. John chapter 4, verses 51 and 52. Almost the end of everything, but first, last time, in the Latin version of John chapter 4. These intros are a little bit too long. Sorry. Sometimes I tend to think people have about as much technological acumen as I do, which is very insulting. Here's our rubric, everything we look for as we go through the text. Well, let's get started. Iam autem eo discendente servi accurrerunt ei et nuntia verunt dicentes, quia filius eius viveret. Interrogabat ergo horam ab eos in qua melius habuerit, et dixerunt ei quia heri hora septima reliquit eum febris. There we go. We have an adverb at the very beginning of our sentence. Autem, we've seen enough times before. Eo here we have is from is ed. And then discendente, we have our e right there, in t as the stem addition to tell us that this is going to be a present participle from discendo, but we need to find our main verb. Servi doesn't work, but accurrerunt with our erunt ending right there. This is an actual erunt ending rather than the one that I mistook last video, or maybe the video before for Latin. Or was that with Virgil? I don't remember. That was at least a week ago. Anyway, accurrerunt. Cutting that out. So, accurrerunt with erunt we know is going to be the third person, not singular but plural. It's the perfect tense and active and indicative. That's one too many commas. It's going to be a very tall N. There we go. That's weird looking. So, because we have the ok, this OB technically, prefix on currere, the reduplication for this verb doesn't happen. Because normally it would be curo, currere, cucuri, but okucuri apparently isn't a thing. So when you add a preposition to the front of run, it doesn't follow the normal reduplication rules that Greek borrow forms, not really borrow words, because I don't think kuro comes from Greek. Anyway, that doesn't apply, which is kind of surprising. But why does the B become C? Because of something or other assimilation. It's not palatal assimilation. It's some word that means the assimilation of the sound together. So consonants like to meld into the same sound, which is why meld into something that's easier, which is why in the Greek we've got the pi and tau, pi and tau often becoming psi when you add a sigma on there, because ps is difficult to say, but ps is much easier to say. But that's a pretty weak example of that. Latin prepositions are doing it all the time, so we've got ob pharaoh becomes off pharaoh. The B it's kind of hard to say a B before an F, so the B becomes an F. And the B just drops out when you get to tuli, atuli. Anyway, should get back to this. So this means to run to meet. This ob. That's where we get the meet version of it, just rather than running. Servi as our long I nominative singular plural masculine as our subject. Ae, also from is ed, is going to be, that's is ed, aes, ae, dative singular common, referring to our chieftain, our noble from previous. And accurret, because of that prepositional prefix, is going to take dative as its object. Moving back to eo discendente, inti, as I already said, is going to be our present active participle. With that e right there, we know that it has to be the ablative, singular, and it's going to be masculine because it is referring to the same noble. There should be an O there. eo is going to be matching descendente, and here we have a ablative absolute. Not to be confused with the genitive absolute, which I did that one time. So eo descendente, descendo means to go down, and I think the reason that we have the verb here, and we also have the same verb in Greek, katabaino, meaning to go down, to descend, is because the Jewish mind has the geographical thought that everything is down from Jerusalem. So maybe the noble is heading north from Capernaum to his home. It's been a traveling over the day. We'll find out later. Or it could be that Capernaum is higher on a hill than where he lives, and so he had to go down. Anyway, I'm going to read out all of that now. While, because they're running up to him while he's doing this, he hasn't yet reached home. Moving on, et and nuntia verunt. This is going to be the same form, so I'm going to just draw this over. This means to announce. And decentes, epsilon sigma there with en t. We know this is going to be another present participle, but this time nominative plural. And then quia is going to introduce the clause that they're saying. Taking a look at the clause, filius, nominative singular, don't need to parse that. Eus is ed, it's genitive singular common. Viveret, this comes from we will, vivere, so we have the ere here for the infinitive ending. T as our personal ending, that's going to be a third singular. When we have the infinitive off of the present stem converted into a verb rather than just a verbal noun that the infinitive is, we know that we have imperfect subjunctive. Why do we have an imperfect subjunctive? It's because we have an indirect question here. They were saying he lives, his son lives, and for reasons that always fall out of my ears while I'm trying to talk about them, Latin constructs these things when it's subjunctive is always hypothetical, but it's in this case you might say an unwitnessed event by the reader that he might live is how might, because might is the verb form that we use in English when we're talking about secondary sequence of tenses. Gosh, it's been a long time since I've thought about the sequences of tenses. Gosh. Complete brain derailment there. Anyway, we've got an indirect question here, which is often introduced by a relative pronoun, but we don't have a relative pronoun here. Instead, we have the quia, which can also introduce them. We have a verb of saying, which introduces indirect things in general. Of course it does. I'm rambling. I'm just going to write out the translation now. And moving on into our next clause, we have interrogabat. We've got bat for our third singular imperfect tense, active and indicative, and I need to put it in. There we go, that it's actually readable. And this means what it looks like. Ergo, therefore, of course. Horam, am, ob starts a prepositional phrase, so I'm going to stop that. Accusative, singular, feminine. Eis, in, new prepositional phrase, so that has to close there. They were asking, therefore, our from, no, they, he. And then eis is going to refer to servi for ablative plural. And it's going to be masculine referring to the servants, but this is the common form. In, another prepositional phrase. Habuerit, we have a new clause here, so I'm going to pause right there and just write this down. In with qua from qui quod quod is going to be taking ablative as well. That's going to be feminine, referring back to horam. Melius, ius right there as our comparative form, so I'll need to remember to write comp in there. I don't remember if I did that for the Greek. Habu erit, E-R-I-T, off of this perfect stem, habu, habeo, habere, habui. This is going to be, since he's asking them, this is going to be another indirect question, which I should have written up here. IQ, which I lack. There we go. E-R-I-T, third, singular, perfect, active, subjunctive is not spelled with an L or an I. Melius is going to be the direct object of habu erit. That's going to be accusative, singular, neuter, comparative. And this is how the ancients talked about the well-being of people. I think each time that we've seen sickness beforehand, it's always been in the imperfect, use the imperfect tense. Or have we? Have we actually seen sickness? Well, yeah, of course. When talking about this chieftain's son, he says, my son was having sickness. Or my son was having unwell, something like that. So Melius, better comparative form of bonus. They look nothing alike. So in which time he was better, is how we would say it in English. We would not say he was having better, but hey, we're different. So the reason that we have the perfect tense here is because this is not a continuing state of being. This is a transitional state of being, if you will. So while he had the sickness, it was imperfect. The verb with it was imperfect. So it was ongoing and continuous. But his recovery from it is a single event, and now he is in the state of being healthy. So then if we were to speak about him being healthy, we would say present tense, or we could use imperfect tense, because I think maybe imperfect tense. It would depend on what tense we had and the clauses surrounding it, probably hand waving around nonsensically. Et and dixerunt, don't need to parse that. We already have that, so let's just pull that down. Ei is ed again, dative, singular, masculine. Quia introducing another statement. Heri, adverb, telling us time. Yesterday, hora septima. These two go together because of the a. Reliquit, since this is the first conjugation, first declension of noun, these could be the subject, but why would the 7th hour leave eum? Instead, we're going to take febris with is as our nominative, singular, feminine ending from febris, the third declension, as their subject word. This can only be nominative or genitive. If we had 7th hour leaving him of fever, well, that doesn't make any sense. Not even in Latin. So instead, the fever leaving him at the 7th hour, hora septima being ablative of time, when. Relinquo, relinquere, reliquui. Relinquo, yeah. So this could be either the present tense or it could be the perfect tense. And the best way to tell that is, well, what does the Greek say? So give me a moment. So we have our Greek right here. And we've got apheiken with an aorist tense. And if you recall last gazillion times that I've pulled on the Greek for this, when we have an aorist tense in the Greek, it's most easily translated by the perfect tense in the Latin. So I'm going to write down both options and circle the perfect. And then write out the translation. Eum is ed, accusative, singular, masculine. Okay, there we have it. Let's go ahead and take a look at this in its own context. Already now, while he is descending, servants ran up to him and announced, saying that his son lives. Therefore he was asking hour from them in which he has better. And they said to him that yesterday at 7th hour fever left him. Curiously, there's a couple words missing from the Latin that appear in the Greek, but we're no longer doing that sort of review video. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you, and I hope that you have a very good day. Wale.